Hi everyone, I'm April, and you're watching the Tangled Cat Speaks, and this is a book edition. Just to remind you, I am living here in Rio Rancho, New Mexico, just outside of Albuquerque. I like to knit, crochet, and read. I keep my crafty videos separate from my book videos. And yeah, let's get started. And thank you to any new subscribers, and welcome back to any ongoing subscribers. I am very happy you're here. So let's see. I did 15 books in the past, I think it's like 2.5 weeks. I don't think it's quite 3 weeks. But I did keep pushing it back because, lazy. So let's see. I did 5 audiobooks, 4 ebooks, and 6 physical books. And 15 sounds like a lot total. But there was a couple of ebooks that I think one was literally just a short story. That was like 7 pages, and another one was like 50 pages. And then there was another one that was like less than 150. So those were kind of short, some of the ebooks. One of them was huge though, because that one was over 400 pages. So let's talk about them. Let's start with the audios. Let's do the audios. I did one big audiobook, which is actually a reread for me. This is my favorite book of all time, which is Watership Down by Richard Adams. And I could have actually done this. I could do it at any time with physical, ebook, or audio because I own all of those. I actually have 3 physical copies. 2 of them which I don't open because they are just super pretty, and then I've got the one paperback that that I actually read from. I've got the ebook on my Kindle, and then I've got the audiobook on Audible. And that's what I listened to this time, was the audio, which is read by, his name escapes me right now. Wow, it was just in my head. I don't remember. Oh, I don't remember. It is. Oh, he was one of the Doctor Who's. Oh my goodness, what is his name? It's right on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, I can't remember it. And I'm going to smack myself when I figure it out. And I'll put the name up here. But my gosh, he's got such a wonderful voice. Wonderful, wonderful voice. He was also in the Netflix version. I like it, but there are parts of it that I really don't like. But anyway, he did the voice for Kahar, which is the big seagull. But in this audiobook, he does all the voices, and he does them so well. And I just had a blast. And I re-listened to this audio because there's a couple of books in this whole list of 15 that I went through that I did not like. One I DNF'd, and a couple of others I couldn't get into them. And then there's a couple that were just okay. I have a few that I really, really enjoyed, but at the time that I decided to listened to Watership Down, I was really in need of something I knew that was going to make me happy, I was going to enjoy. So that's why I put that one on, and it did the trick. I loved it. It just makes me so happy. I just love it. It's about rabbits, and it's originally for children, but it's very adult themed. Like, there's battles between different rabbit warrens, and it's quite violent. It's got dark. One of the rabbits is kind of prophetic in a way, and he has these very dark and scary dreams. And there's animal attacks by other animals. There's death. There's all of the bad things that men can do to animals, especially wild animals. It's just a very heavy book, especially when you consider that it's for children. I loved it. I loved it. I read it when I was 10, and I've read it. This was probably about the 10th time that I've reread or listened to this book, and it's my favorite of all time, and it made me super, super happy. So that was one of the audios that I did. The other, I have two other audios. It was a duology by Brian Freeman, and I can't remember what state it's set in, somewhere on the east side of the United States. But it's set in a town that has a big forest and a lake, and it's just very rural. I don't know if you call forests rural? Anyway, but they have a legend in this area called the Ursulina, and it's about a creature that lives in the woods, and they're very afraid of it. And the first book is called The Deep, Deep Snow. And this is about a young sheriff's deputy, I believe she is. And she's the adopted daughter of the sheriff, who is getting on in years, and they end up having to investigate some murders, and the murders are signed, so to speak, by the killer using the blood of the victims, signed as the Ursulina. There's several murders, and they're trying to figure out how it's connected. But there is, the detective, she does believe that it's obviously a human murderer, but there are still the elements of this legend, mythical creature thing. So maybe it's actually a thing, but is it that one actually doing the murders? So that kind of thing. So it's really, really interesting. And in that story, that you learn that the sheriff who adopted her as a baby basically found her in the forest, abandoned, and so he kept her, raised her, and you never find out anything about her biological parents. Then the second book is called Ursulina, and this follows. Oh, and I forgot to mention in that first one, The Deep, Deep Snow, when these murders started happening and they're signed by the Ursulina, they make reference to previous murders that happened decades before that also had that same signature. So they're trying to figure out, is it a copycat? Is it the same person that was never caught and now he's starting again? So the second book, Ursulina, goes back and tells the story about those original murders. Very good stories. Like I said, they're on Audible. I think they're the ones that are like Audible originals. So I didn't pay for those. Those came with the subscription. So I'm not going to consider those as owned to go toward my challenge where I'm reading or listening to 100 books that I own. So those aren't going to go towards that. But I really, really enjoyed them. Very, very good mysteries. A little bit gruesome, but I didn't mind that at all. I had a really, really good time with both of those. And then there was a couple of really short audios that I listened to just to take up time before I needed to start something bigger. The first one, I think this is actually, all of these are Audible originals. One is called Saturn's Monsters. I thought this was going to be like space alien creature things, but it wasn't exactly. It's about a group of scientists who are up in space doing their scientific spacey thingy, and they're trying to build ships faster using this like newer technology, but they're also trying to incorporate animal-based, I don't know, I wouldn't say DNA, but I can't remember how they named it, but it was some animal-based coding. They're adding animal stuff into the coding of these. I kind of like nanobots, and so it's building the ship itself, like self-building these ships that are gonna help them do whatever it is they need to do in space. And they're calling these self-growing ships monsters. And there's some glitches happening in some of these monsters where they're doing what things that they're not programmed to do, and they're basically attacking, and so they're trying to figure out what's going on there. I enjoyed it for what it was. The only problem that I had with it was there was just too much. Everybody on the ship was just, we're being attacked by one of these monsters, let's go have sex. There was a lot of that, and that was a little bit of a downgrade for me, but the rest of the story was interesting, and it was, it was fun. It was kind of a mid-range. If I were grading it, it would be sort of, mid-range for me. I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. Same thing as far as the grading. I liked it, but I didn't love it. Was another story called Nadine, and I don't remember all the authors for these, so I'll put those up here. But this other one is Nadine, and this one was more of just like a women's literature fiction kind of thing, and it's basically about a girl who's getting ready for her wedding, and we don't ever really get to the wedding part, but she's having a conversation with I think she's an aunt. Anyway, she's an older woman, and she's been through several marriages, and now she's just like, nope, I don't want to be married. I don't want to do this. And she gives all of these reasons why she's not a monogamous kind of person. And so it seems it's kind of it was a little bit of a strange story. It was really short. It was like maybe an hour long listen. It was okay. I listened to it, but it was all right. So let's get into some of the ebooks that I read. And we'll start with a couple of really short ones. These were some that I bought on Kindle for like 99 cents, just because I had 99 cents to spend. One of them is called The Castle of Otranto, which is listed as a horror. And this one was, I want to say, this was the one that was like 50 pages. And it concerns the king. He was upset that his son went missing for a long time, and he can't get another son out of his current wife. So he's upset with her, decides that he's going to go after one of her maids and make her his new baby mama. And she's like, ew, creepy. And she's trying to escape from him because he's also quite violent and mean, and she's trying to get out of this castle before he decides to force her to marry him and bear his children. So she's going through all of these passages and everything. She comes across a person hidden in the secret passageways, and there's also this feeling amongst all of the servants that there's a presence in the castle, and they think it's haunted. So now the question comes to mind to this young maid: is this ghostly presence actually a ghost, or is it this guy that's been hiding in the passageways? And it was really cool. It was interesting, but it's a very old book. It's written in that older language that's a little bit hard to understand, so I had to take it a little bit slower, but that was really good. I really liked that one. Then there was another one that I read that's also really, really old. It's called Ghost, and it was by Lafcadio Hearn, and it was a very, very short story. It was only like 7 pages long. Another one of those 99-cent buys. But it was, even now, it was only 7 pages, and I'm not sure I understood what I read. It didn't seem like it was more like if it was actual about ghosts. It was more about this person who was traveling and had seen a lot of the world and the things that haunted him, like memories. It was more like the ghost of memories than it was an actual ghost, if that makes sense. It was very not what I was expecting. It was okay. I enjoyed it, but it just wasn't, when you see the title Ghost, you're thinking ghosts. That's not what it was. And then another ebook that I read was by Blake Crouch. I'm still on my Blake Crouch journey, reading everything by him by publication date. And this one was Famous. And this one was like a novella length. It was about 195 pages or so. Very short. It was about a guy who realizes that he looks remarkably like a star, a famous Hollywood star. And he lives with his mom. He lives in the basement. He ends up losing his job. And because he's been living with his parents for a very long time, he never had to pay bills, and he saved all his money. So he's got $40,000, $40,000+. And so he decides that he's going to leave his parents' house, and he goes kind of on a binge. He buys very pricey cars. He goes on this trip to, I think, to LA, and he goes and he gets all his hair done, and he buys new clothes and just has this big makeover so that he can look a lot more like this superstar. And he tries to live the life of this superstar, and it's kind of stalkerish. It's very, very interesting. It's really short. It's of the Blake Crouch books that I've read so far, that was my least favorite. The other book that I read that was on ebook was Blood of the Mantis. Now, this was an exciting book. This is the third book, I believe it was the third book, in the Shadows of the App series by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Again, there's 10 books in this series, so you're going to hear me talk about Shadows of the App for a long time. But Blood of the Mantis was a really good continuation, and it feels like it was much shorter than the first two, so I feel like it's setting up something that's going to happen in the fourth book, because it was more political intrigue and espionage kind of going on, as opposed to the big battles that were in the other two books. So I'm excited to see where this is going. They've introduced some other types of bug people. We've got mosquito people. Ew. And there is something called an assassin bug, which you can obviously see what kind of job he's got in the story, but that's an actual bug. And I looked it up. I Googled it. Not cute. It was kind of creepy. So we'll see how this story plays out with this assassin bug. But I'm really enjoying it. It's just a very clever fantasy, taking away all of what we're used to in fantasy, elves and dwarves and dragons and all of this stuff. It's bug people, and it's very interesting, and I'm really enjoying it. So that takes us to the physical books that I read. And we'll start with Attack on Titan. I only did 2 this time because I really was really wanting to read more books that I own, and I don't own Attack on Titan. Those I'm getting from the library. So I only did 2 this time. I did volumes 21 and 22. And then I kind of stopped. That was at the beginning of the last few weeks. And I liked them, but I think I'm going to push this aside just a little bit so that I can read a little bit more. I might, the next time just do 1 or 2 again and not 4 or 5 of them. So I'm going to be taking this a little bit slower now that we're getting closer to the end. I think I've only got 10 more volumes in that series. Still enjoying it, but I really am excited to be getting into more of books that I own. But again, those Titans attacking the cities, and it's getting a lot more into the backstory of how these Titans came to be. So that's really interesting. Now, another book that I read, this is one that I did not like, and I was very disappointed. I actually DNF'd this book. And I should have brought it because I actually have it on the shelf over there. I was going to show you that I do own it. But this is The Deep by Peter Benchley. Now, Peter Benchley wrote Jaws. Loved that book. So and this one looks like it's, about underwater. So I thought this was going to be another underwater creature kind of book, but it wasn't. It was more of a thriller that involves a couple that go deep sea diving, and it looks like they're trying to salvage an old wrecked ship, and then there's shenanigans that happen. I don't know more about it because, like I said, I DNF'd it. I stopped at about 50 pages, 75 pages. This is only like a 220 page book. I got somewhere in that area, less than 75 for sure, and I just was not into it, and maybe it was just my mood. I don't know. I did not like it. Didn't finish it. I'm definitely donating that book. Didn't like it. But, that's the way it goes sometimes. And then another physical book that I have, and I have already donated this one to a little free library. This is called The Year of Magical Thinking, and this is by Joan Didion. I'd never heard of her before, but apparently she's an author, and this is a memoir of a particular year in her life, where she was dealing with her husband, both her husband and her daughter, her grown daughter. No, was her daughter grown or a teenager? Anyway, her husband and her daughter are both very sick, and they do pass away, and it's just her year of grief, basically. And how magical it ends up being that she went through such horrible grief to being able to still be sad and still live life afterward. That kind of thing. It's very interesting. Really enjoyed it. It's not very long, and I don't typically read memoirs, but I really enjoyed this one. So The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion. Now this next book is actually a children's book, and it's like 20 some pages. Very short. And this is called Otis. I don't remember the name of the author. I'll put it up here. It's one of the children's picture books where it's got maybe 3 or 4 sentences a page. And it's about a little tractor who is happy being on the farm and doing all of the farm chores with the farmer. And he makes friends with a little calf who for some reason is just not happy on the farm. But, it's a kid's book, so the calf and the tractor have a friendship. And then the farmer decides that he wants a better, fancier tractor, so he gets it, and he kind of puts Otis away. Well, the calf gets very sad, and he ends up searching for Otis, and he puts himself in harm's way, and nobody can figure out how to help this calf. And then Otis comes to the rescue. It's a super cute book, very short, and I am not ashamed to say that I sometimes enjoy reading elementary age or even preschool age books. I just find them fun, and I just needed something cute to boost my emotions that particular day. So it took me all of 6 minutes to read it because I was looking. Probably would have taken me less if I'd have just read it, but I was like, it's a picture book. You got to look at the pictures. So really had a good time at that one. Now the last book that I'm going to talk about is, and I should have brought this as well because it's sitting right there. You know what? I'm going to grab it. Hi, I'm back. So, real quick, this was the Peter Benchley book, The Deep, that I did not like. Definitely donating this one. But this other book is called Abandon by Blake Crouch. So this is the next book that I needed to read, and it's quite long, much longer than the last one, Famous. And I liked this one much more. This is kind of one of those where you're getting 2 different versions. that's not how I want to say it. Like there's part of it switches off between back in the 1800s and then current time. And you've got basically the current time people are going on this expedition to this town called Abandon, and it's in this wooded area. You got to go through all of these trails that are not marked. It's very hard to find, and it's basically a ghost town. There's nobody there. It used to be a mining town, and the way that happens, with old mining towns, once whatever they're mining runs out, people move out. But this particular one has a history because nobody knows what happened to those people. They just disappeared. And people have recently had found this ghost town, and when they go to explore, they can tell that people literally were just gone. Their clothes were still there, even though hundreds of years later they're in tatters. But you could say their clothes were still there. They were literally cooking. They were just up and gone, and nobody could figure out what happened to them. And this expedition involves like a journalist, and she's trying to get the story about these other two people who were also on the expedition, who are looking to feel some sort of paranormal presence, to see if they can figure out what happened. And then you've got the guides to lead them through the trails, and one of these guides happens to be the journalist's father, and they have a very bad relationship, a bad history between them. So there's tension between those two. And then it flashes back and forth between present time and past time. And in the past time, it leads up to what happened, and you get to find out why this town called Abandon was suddenly abandoned. Maybe it's more of a thriller, but kind of a horror, because it does have some scary elements. It's really, really interesting. And when you find out everything that happened, it's a good ending. I really liked how both past and present kind of tied up at the end. It was really, really good. Yeah, Abandoned. Very good book. And while I was up, I decided to get one of those Richard Adams hardcovers that I told you that I don't read out of this, but look how pretty. It's like it feels like cloth, hardcover. I love it so much. I have another one. It's bigger, but it's under some things, and that's a big, giant illustrated book. Super pretty. But yes, love it. And that happens to be all that I read these past few weeks. It's like 2.5 weeks. Now, as far as the books that I read that I owned, out of all of these 15, I owned 11. Some of those were ebooks, so obviously those I'm keeping. And of the ones that are physical, let's see, that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. 4 of those 6 I am donating, or already have donated one of them, to little free libraries. The other 2 of those 6, those were the ones that I didn't own, and I returned those back to the library. Obviously, I'm keeping the ebooks, and I'm keeping the audios. So far in my 100 book challenge, where I read or listen to 100 books before I can buy any new ones, I am up to 42. So I'm almost halfway there. Super excited about that. And yeah, I am so glad that you came by and hung out with me for a few minutes while I rambled on about stuff that I read recently, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye-bye.